All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Board Legal Counsel Ad Hoc Committee meeting. I would like to call to order this meeting on August 30th, 2021. For those of you that may not know me, my name is Rahila Ahmed. I'm the chair of this committee as announced by the chair of the Board of Education at our August 24th board meeting last week. I'm also the District 5 representative on the Prince George's County Board of Education. I wanted to thank everybody, board colleagues, board staff, as well as members of the public for being here today. Just wanted to share some background information for members of the public around this committee and around this meeting. So this ad hoc committee meeting, this ad hoc committee was formed and is meeting as a result of board action at the aforementioned August 24th meeting. And the purpose is to identify and recommend next steps that the board could take regarding sustaining legal counsel. This is a public meeting upon request of the board, and it was also voted upon by the board to have this meeting within 1 week of August 24th. And so we are right here at the end of that week-long requirement meeting today. And so to start the meeting, I would like to ask that everyone that is on the committee please introduce themselves. And then members that are joining, other colleagues that are joining that are observing the meeting can introduce themselves. And then finally, board staff. So we can start with board colleagues that are on the committee. I can start maybe with our chair of the board.
Good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Juanita Miller.
Thank you.
Good evening, Edward Burrows.
Good evening, Sonia Williams, representative for District 9 and the vice chair of the Board of Education.
Thank
Good
you.
evening, Judy. I'm sorry.
And we have a board member, a board colleague observing the meeting today. Go ahead, Ms. McIntyre.
Thank you, Judy Mickens Murray. Thank you.
And then we also have one member of the committee that will hopefully be joining us shortly, Joshua Thomas from District 2. I'd like to pass it over to board staff to introduce themselves.
Good evening, I'm Aisha Berkeley, Board Assistant.
Good evening, Brandon Cooper, Director of Policy.
All right, thank you so much. So I did want to let members of the public know that administration, the school system administration did notify us that they won't be able to attend this meeting due to a previously scheduled retreat. However, they did provide the committee with sufficient information to do our work today. But usually our meetings have a member of administration, and that is the reason why they're not here. With that, we can move on to item 2.0, which is discussion. I'd like to provide folks with a timeline of activity since the Board of Education voted on August 24th. Just for everyone to know where we were at, where we're going, and where we're at now. So immediately after the meeting that day, I requested support from board staff members, Aisha Berkeley and Brandon Cooper to, number one, confirm meeting dates and times with board colleagues on this committee so that we can make this meeting live as soon as possible and be in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. And two, to solicit input from board colleagues about avenues to take from here regarding legal counsel. So on Wednesday, a survey went out to board colleagues and the meeting date was set and went live online. And then on Thursday, all the responses from the survey were collected. And on Friday, school system administration went through all of the board member suggestions and provided feedback on the various options. Those suggestions and feedback were sent to the full board that Friday afternoon. And so colleagues, if you haven't had a chance to review that, it should be in your inboxes. And then on Saturday, board staff sent my recommendation for action for consideration by this committee based upon administration's feedback, alongside an offer to chat about it anytime this weekend. And I do want to thank the few board members that reached out to discuss the options with me over the weekend. I did make some amendments therefrom based upon the feedback that I received. And so that brings us to today, where we can really discuss everything. And hopefully we can vote to recommend something to the board for consideration as soon as we can. And so at this point in time, for members of the public, I'll outline some of the recommendations that were made by members of the board and some of the concerns and feedback for each of them. I'm accounting for this verbally because it's my understanding that administration recommended that the suggestions and feedback document not be posted publicly. I don't know why, but I imagine there's some type of legal concern there. And so I obliged with that suggestion. So here are some of the recommendations that came forward from different colleagues as it relates to this matter. One suggestion was around directing the purchasing department to investigate the possibility of piggybacking off of another county's Board of Education legal services contract. And that suggestion was a good suggestion. Administration had provided the feedback that they were not able to find another contract in the local area to piggyback off of. There was another suggestion of having the hiring panel consist of evaluators selected by Dr. Goldson and the Office of Procurement. There was concerns there around evaluators from outside of the board, non-board members from outside of the board will not be directly involved in working with the selected vendor and may not fully understand the needs of the board as board members would and as board members do. There was another suggestion around administration recommending a board attorney that is available to start on appeals next week. And the issue there is that could be seen as a conflict, as the appeals before the board are appeals of decisions made by administration. So administration is selecting, has their perspective presented and their person, and then they're selecting the person to represent the board, could be perceived as a conflict. There was another suggestion that was made about moving forward with the number 2 firm as permanent legal counsel. And the administration straight up said that they do not agree with moving on to the second firm. And then the last one that I'll mention here, another good suggestion is to establish a qualified bidder pool similar to the federal government's IDIQ process. And per administration, this is an extensive process with extended times for actions requiring an overhaul of policies and procedures. And so I was honestly very happy and very glad about all of the suggestions that were brought forward from members of the committee, or from members of the board around this issue. And now I'll introduce the recommendation for moving forward with amendments based upon conversation with colleagues and ask for a motion so that we can begin discussion on those items.
Before we get started, I'm sorry,
Ms.
Madam
Williams, is this
Chair.
a point of order?
No, I'm just trying to
Ms. Williams,
find.
do not recognize at this time. Please let me continue
Well, this is a point of order because this is a
Okay.
point of order
What
because
is
I'm
your point
trying
of order,
to
Ms. Williams?
follow. I'm
Mhm.
trying to follow what you're reading from. And so I received something this morning and some of those things are in there, but there was an item from the previous responses about interviewing the firms, and the administration provided some feedback on that. And so it was actually the first item on the board member's suggestion. So I'm just trying to make sure I have the most current document in front of me that you're reading from. And it appears that what I received this morning is slightly different from what you're reading from. So is it possible that you can email us that document so that
Yes, I can
I
do
can
this.
understand the differences and follow along with what you're reading?
Yes, Ms. Williams. So the document that I am referring to is the recommendation document. It is not the Excel spreadsheet with the suggestions and feedback. I consolidated that information into the recommendations document, so that's where it can be located. I will continue with the remainder of my piece here, and then I'll open up for discussion. So the recommendation for moving forward around temporary legal services, Plan A is the Office of Procurement contacts all firms that we are not currently working with from the MABE approved list to see which ones would be available to provide temporary services to the board regarding student appeals, labor employee appeals, and labor union appeals only. The Office of Procurement will then select a qualified firm that can start as soon as possible. In the case that the Office of Procurement cannot find a suitable qualified MABE approved vendor to provide the services to the board by September 15th. Then Plan B can proceed, and Plan B is that the board's hearing examiners who are already on contract with the board will be authorized to provide legal counsel services to the board regarding student appeals, labor employee appeals, and labor union appeals only. In either of these plans, the Office of Procurement will ensure all policies and practices are followed and contracts developed and signed up to the amount of $24,999. And that will be independent of any individual board member involvement. Those are plans A and B for the temporary legal services. For permanent legal counsel services, the plan is the Office of Procurement will conduct an entirely new RFP process, which will take approximately 75 days to complete, and have a new firm awarded a contract. The RFP should be out for solicitation for 30 days. Administration will provide clarity in the new RFP regarding the requirement of education law experience and that new firms are eligible for consideration. And the hiring panel should consist of a completely new group of 3 board members approved by the board. A suggested list of members are below, and those members are Shayla Adams Stafford, Pamela Boozer Struther, and Kenneth Harris. May I have a motion to recommend these courses of actions to the full Board of Education for consideration at the September 2nd, 2021 board meeting?
I move for discussion.
I have a
Is there a
question.
second? Ma'am,
Second.
there's been a motion and it's been seconded. We can now open up for discussion. I see, Ms. Williams, your hands was up from before. Are you still up for this round? No? Okay, I see Dr. Miller and then Ms. Williams. Dr. Miller.
My first question is, when you read the feedback from the administration, there seems to be some conflict in what information we received, because in reference to the administration recommending that we not go to the second bidder. And I need to, or not just I, but I think the whole board should understand why not the second bidder, because that was not what was communicated to us. So was there any justification at the time? Because evidently this is something you had a discussion with the administration, but that was not imparted with, that information was not given to the rest of this committee nor to the rest of the board.
Sure, I can address that. I actually did not have a direct conversation with administration on this. I made sure that board staff could take the feedback, the suggestions, and work with administration to receive the responses on the suggestions. And so what I'm referring to here, I don't know the details of what you're asking. I think that is something that can be asked and looked at by administration. If we can add that as a follow-up item for this meeting, Ms. Berkeley and Mr. Cooper, that would be great. But administration's feedback has been very clear. If you look at number 2, board member suggestion number 2, administration's feedback number 1, it says don't agree with moving on to the second firm. So that is what.
You just said that you did not, this was not communicated to you. This is what staff brought back from the administration. So we're getting third-handed. And as I indicated in talking to the CEO, that was not what was communicated to the chair in reference to not going to the second. I'm not going to pontificate that issue. I'll just move on. But I do want it to go on record that there's some conflict in the information that you're presenting now in reference to the administration's feedback and that which has been given to, that which has not been shared with the rest of the board members.
Okay, Dr. Miller, does that conclude your comments for this at this time?
At this time.
Okay, Ms. Williams?
Hi. So in reading the full 2 sentences of the response from the administration, it says, don't agree with moving forward. This is the second. So let me make sure everyone understands where I'm reading. This is the responses that was provided to me this morning from staff. There are 5 suggestions made by board members, 1 through 5. Number 2, which is the one you referred to, it has a comment from administration. And let me read to you what number 2 states. The hiring committee needs clear direction on the law about next steps for the 2 law firms that came in first and second place in the public RFP process. We need to report back on what the law and policies are for the second place firm when the first place firm cannot proceed forward for any reason. We need to get the legal pieces right in this next step before any other steps are taken. So that is what the board member suggested. The administration's response stated, I don't agree with moving on the second firm. See previous suggestion. So the previous suggestion is suggestion number 1, which states, in the interest of time, interview next law firm on the list from the original RFP. If committee approves, bring the vote to the full board as soon as possible. Request procurement vet the law firm's thoroughness, meeting all RFP requirements, announce new law firm the week of August 30th, and share all responses in the form to this form with all board members once recorded on August 26th. So the administration's feedback is this: reevaluate all current firms, potentially include an objective member from the Office of General Counsel on the evaluation panel, or complete a new bid process that will take approximately 75 days to get the new firm on board. Number 2, in the administration's feedback, the meeting is not until August 30th. So number 4, which was announced the new law firm by August 30th, should not read, sorry. The meeting is not until August 30th. So number 4 should read announce new law firm on September 2nd, since the board is already meeting. Reevaluate all proposals based on the stated evaluation criteria would reduce the likelihood of a protest. And in response to number 3, purchasing will vet the firms for responsiveness and responsibility. So I think when you read the full response from the board administration on not agreeing with not going to the second firm, it's clear that they basically stated that instead of going to the second firm, let's pull back in all the other proposals and review them and bring them back. And if our goal as a board is to bring a law firm, a legal counsel on board as quickly as possible, 75 days doesn't get us until November. And so I think that one thing that we should, as this committee, should set as a goal is to bring on a legal counsel as quickly as possible so that we can continue the work of the board and fully do all the work of the board. So I just wanted to make sure that it was clear to the public that the administration just did not say they don't agree with going to the second firm. What they basically stated was that we would reevaluate all the other firms that are viable, that are left in the original pool, and then we make a selection from that. And this will eliminate reduce the likelihood of us having a protest. So 75 days in my mind is a long time for us to be without a counsel since April. That's what, about 8 months or so? So I think that before we decide on how we're going to move forward, I think this committee should determine what is our goal. And if our goal is to bring on a legal counsel as quickly as possible, which I think should be the goal of this committee, 75 days is a long time to go through this process, especially since we have 3 viable firms that are available for us to review a little further. And after reviewing what the proposals that were presented by the other 3 firms, the other 3 firms provided the information that the one firm did not provide, which made them not eligible. So I just wanted to put all of that on the record. And I think that our responsibility is to first determine what is the goal of this committee outside of bringing back a solution. I think it is important that we bring back a solution that can get us to our goal, which is obtaining a legal counsel as soon as possible.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Williams. We'll go to Dr. Miller, round 2.
Question, what was the, what is the motion that's on the floor?
Ms. Berkeley, would you like to read out the motion?
Sure. As written, it is motion to recommend the courses of action to the full Board of Education for consideration at the September 2nd board meeting, but those courses of action are for temporary legal counsel services, there's a Plan A and a Plan B, and then for permanent legal counsel services, there's a Plan A. Do you want me to read out everything?
Is Plan A the plan that includes the 75 days?
Plan A does not include 75 days for the temporary legal services, no.
Oh, that's the temporary, okay.
For permanent legal services, yes, ma'am. The plan, there's only one, Plan A for 75 days to complete. Yes.
Okay, before we take the vote, I just have to, first of all, I'd like to thank board member chair, committee chair, Ahmed, for her efforts in pulling this together. And I know it must have been tedious. However, as chair of this board, it is my fiduciary responsibility to conduct, maintain order, sanctity, and the integrity of board operations. That being said, it is my intent to move this process of hiring legal counsel within the next week. And when I say my, I hope it's our intent to move this process of hiring legal counsel within the next week. Now, after reading the summary provided by board member chair, committee chairperson, committee chair member Ahmed, and revisiting our prior meeting on this matter, many red flags have been raised, which caused great concern. In the meeting when the CEO provided information on why the Robertson firm was being disqualified, board member Adam Stafford proposed to hire that firm on the under $25,000 method. Then board member Ahmed also raised concerns about the Shipley firm donations to the county executive and clerk of the court, who happens to be the sister of our vice chair. Board members Burrows and David Murray failed to disclose their relationship with Robertson, who is their fraternity brother. And further, board member Burrows was instrumental in getting Mr. Robertson appointed to the ethics panel, in addition to the fact that Robertson worked in his campaign. Next, the problematic issue could be the scoring in the evaluations of those firms. And as you all remember, the procurement officers did bring to our attention some concerns relative to how those evaluations, how they were scored. And this could bring, those issues could put this board in legal jeopardy if there was ever a protest on the outcome of our final selection. Therefore, I am requesting that we not piecemeal this process, nor put out another RFP, especially considering that 4 firms submitted bids this time. Or after all that time, we had 4 bids that came in. Well, we had 4 bids, and we interviewed 2 firms. One has been since disqualified. However, my suggestion would be that we interview the 3rd firm, compare their evaluation. Well, really, we should interview the 2 other firms since we disqualified the first one. We can interview the other 2 firms and do scoring and do a comparison. And the firm that comes out with the highest score would be the firm that we will select for our permanent legal services, which would provide all of these ancillary services that you're talking about, hearing officers, appeals, etc. So I'm just suggesting that it should be noted that we cannot afford to, nor be handicapped by not having full service legal counsel for another week. We've gone 4 months without it. And it's to our detriment not to have legal counsel at all of these meetings. So with that being said, I'm going to ask for a friendly amendment because a vote against selecting a firm will appear to be a continuation of obstruction to the work of this board and could be characterized as reckless. So who made the motion? I'd like to make a friendly amendment to that motion. Who made the motion?
I made the motion.
Well, I'd like to make a friendly amendment that we move that the board move forward with interviewing the 2 remaining firms, and the one with the highest score being the firm to be confirmed by the board to provide legal services. And the other thing we also can consider is that we can hire a legal firm, and after a year, I mean, we can put it on a timeline. It can be a yearly thing, and we don't have to necessarily renew the contract. But colleagues, 4 months without legal counsel, and now you're proposing possibly another 3 months. That is a disservice to this board. That is a disservice to our constituency. This is a disservice to our administration, our school administration.
Thank you, Board Member Miller. Mr. Burrows, do you accept that friendly amendment?
Madam Committee Chair, do I have the floor?
If it is, you can accept and then you can go on with your comments or accept or deny, but the question at hand is whether or not you approve the friendly amendment.
I do not approve of their friendly amendment, but I would like to have the floor.
Sure. Mr. Burrows, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. I appreciate this newfound urgency that has not been present for the last 4 months. I specifically remember when the board did have legal counsel, this board voting to release an RFP by a certain deadline. And the leadership of this board chose not to release it by that deadline. In fact, it was delayed unnecessarily for several weeks. I remember the board voting multiple times to hire a qualified individual. And that was, and the board chair did not sign that contract from that qualified individual. So all of us can, read scripts that were not written by ourselves, or we can really try to collaborate to do what we believe is in the best interest of the board. I absolutely want us to have a lawyer as soon as possible. I also want that person or those individuals to have education, policy, and legal experience. I think it would be a disservice to this board not to have someone with a knowledge of education law. The chair mentioned that I'm a fraternity brothers, which is no secret. I wear my black and no gold tie often. Every single person who applied submitted their resume. It was very clear that the individual that she mentioned, all over the resume, mentioned that that they were in the same fraternity as I am. Same as Martin Luther King and Thurgood Marshall, right? So I'm very proud of that. I'm not sure the relevance of that. I do think it's, since we're talking about, conflicts, I would like to remind the chair that as she was scoring in the RFP process, she disclosed that she awarded a firm points the way that she did because of a prior relationship with that firm. And it was the procurement.
That is not true. And I apologize if
Madam Chair,
excuse me, Madam Chair,
Madam
but
Chair,
I am
the
not
floor is
going
yours.
to sit here
Madam
and
Chair,
allow
the floor is
Mr. Board Member Burrows
not your
to
time. Madam Chair, I
lie.
understand.
No, you know what? I know I'm being rude, but that's the point. That's the problem
her,
we have
mute her.
now.
Madam Chair,
Madam Chair,
Madam Chair, I
I
really
am
do not want
not going
to
to
be here.
tolerate these
Madam Chair,
lies, and I'm not going to tolerate
Madam Chair,
public
it's not
hearing,
your
Mr.
ability or
Burrows
your time to-
put that
there was
information
no
out there.
interruption from
The
your
record will
statement
show
to
that
that
I
towards
asked
the
for
other
board
board members
members
on this
to
committee.
disclose if they had any disclosure,
Madam Chair, Board
and
Member Miller,
he did not. And
Member
for
Miller,
him
this
to
is
sit
not your
there
time.
and tell this
Board Member
lie
Miller, please,
before
this is
the
not your
public,
time.
I'm not going to
Board Member Miller,
tolerate
this
it.
is not your
What is
time.
being done by this board and that
Board Member
particular
Miller, you've
group
had your
is
time to be
criminal,
able to share.
clearly
Board-
criminal.
Board Member
And
Miller, please.
you can run to any media and say that I
Board
went
Member
off
Miller, I
on you.
really do not want to
Yes,
ask
I'm
staff
going off on you
to
because you
stop you
are
from.
recklessly handling the
Member
business
Miller,
of
please,
this
could you-
Board of
Could
Education.
you please,
And I
okay.
apologize to you, committee chairperson, board member Ahmed, and to the rest of my board members, and to the public, because the public needs to know what is going on behind closed doors with some
Thank
of
you,
these
Board Member Miller.
members. And I am not
Board-
going to sit and
Board Member Miller-
allow anybody
Member
to
Miller, this is
view
not
the
your time.
integrity of this
Respect
board
my
and this county.
leadership as chair of
And
this
that
committee
is
and
what's
try to
going
keep
on.
order. But this is not ordering. This is not an ordered situation.
I know it's never in order when the truth is being prevailed.
Board Member Miller,
Truth
please,
prevails.
I'm trying to maintain order of this meeting.
Unfortunately, I
This-
apologize.
Thank you for your apology. At this point in time, Mr. Burrows, you still had the floor. Ms. Berkeley, could you please reclaim Mr. Burrows' time? And Mr. Burrows, you can continue with your statement.
Yes, ma'am. I gave him back 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ahmed. And so I think it's important, as I mentioned before, that we get the right firm in place. It's important that we have a firm with education law experience. The school system is entirely too important to haphazardly select legal counsel based off of prior relationships of our appointed leadership. I believe I'm open to even going to MAPE and only selecting a MAPE approved firm, because at the very least, we will know that that person or those individuals had the education law experience to help support the board. And so I reject that amendment. I reject that friendly amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burrows. I see Mr. Thomas for round 1, and then we can go to Ms. Williams for round 2. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you. Apologies for being camera off. I'm currently in transit, but I will be in front of my laptop in the next 10 minutes or so. I just wanted to really echo the comments from Board Member Burrows. I want to just, again, be clear about the fact that we have been put in this position by inept leadership that has forced us to now be without legal counsel for many months. And so personally, I don't have much of an appetite for the bit about urgency that has all of a sudden appeared. And I would also just want to make a request to board staff who is supporting in facilitating this meeting, that if board members are speaking out of turn and out of order, if you could please mute them. I know that that's been done to me several times when I wasn't even speaking over anyone during those moments. I was just saying a point of order. So if you can, if I can ask the chair to please enforce that option, because I think it's totally out of order for board members to be talking over other board members, not even to raise a point of order, but simply to go on a spiel for over 2 minutes. That's unacceptable. So let's please act in order. And if not, I request that the chair utilizes the mute feature to mute board members that are speaking out of turn. That's so unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Thomas. I am hopeful that we will not have this type of situation again during this meeting. And we will move forward to Ms. Williams for round 2.
Thank you. First, I'd like to remind everyone that this board leadership has already gone to MAPE and received the list. And just because there is a list does not require them to provide us with legal services. The response that we received back in the early part of the year is that some of those firms that are on that list are already doing business with PGCPS in some way, shape, or form. The others that are on the list said that they did not want to participate in the legal counsel services for a temporary basis. So there are 2 items that have come up that has already been explored by board leadership. And the other one includes the piggybacking of another contract from another jurisdiction. And as we stated earlier in this year, we were not successful for the reasons that you have now presented. As I mentioned before, I have several years of procurement experience that I bring to this board that for some reason continues to be ignored. And then when the process is done on your own, you end up at the same place that we were months ago. And so the urgency is taking experience from board members and moving forward with it versus wasting time repeating just to end up where we could have been months ago. And the urgency and process has always been that of this board. And we all understand why the original firm, well, the firm that was presented by certain board members was not signed off by the chair because of the process in which it occurred, did not follow procurement process. I just want to quickly share a story with you all. I was on the Beltway the other day, and it was a little crowded. There was a lot of traffic, but some motorcyclists took it upon themselves, instead of waiting in traffic in the lanes that are divided by lines, dash lines, they decided to ride on the dash lines. Although they were able to do it, they should not have done it. And so I just want to remind us as a board, as a committee, just because we're able to do something, there is a process, there are procedures, and there are reasons that we should follow what is the practice and the law that is set in front of us. Otherwise, we're going to get ourselves in trouble. So as I continue down the Beltway and the traffic moved along, every single one of those motorcyclists were pulled off the side of the road by several cops, because although they could ride on the dotted line and get through the traffic, they shouldn't have, and then they were held accountable for that. So I just wanted to share that story with you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. We'll go forward to Mr. Burrows for round 2.
I'll put down my hand for now.
All right. Is there any, I know that there have been a couple of board members that have done round 1 and round 2. Is there any board member that would like to take their time for round 2? I think it's only Mr. Thomas and Mr. Burrows that have that time remaining.
No, I yield my time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, colleagues, we will take a vote on the motion. Ms. Berkeley, could you please read the motion once more?
Yes, ma'am. The motion on the floor is to recommend the courses of action to the full Board of Education for consideration at the September 2nd board meeting. Those courses of action include Plan A for the temporary legal counsel services. And if that is not suitable, then a Plan B for the temporary legal counsel services. There is also a Plan A for permanent legal counsel services.
Thank you, Ms. Berkeley. Motion has been properly moved and seconded. We've heard discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed?
No.
We have 1 no from Ms. Williams. I see Board Member Miller,
No.
2 noes. So we have 3 ayes, 2 noes. The motion carries with 3 ayes. Colleagues, at this point in time, in terms of next steps, I would ask that board staff please communicate and submit the information necessary for this recommendation to move forward to the full board at our September 2nd meeting. And that was item 3.0. And moving on to item 4.0, closing remarks from the committee chair and adjournment. I do want to thank everyone for I will pause. Ms. Williams, do you have a point of order? You're on mute.
I just wanted clarification. Is this item already on the agenda for the September 2nd meeting? I did not confirm that.
Now that this committee has voted to move it forward, we'll move it forward to board leadership for consideration at the September 2nd meeting. And to be voted upon then as a committee recommendation.
Yeah, I think we should review the Opens Meeting Act on this, on adding a new item so late into the week. So we'll send it forward and we will get a clarify that it is okay to be put on in such a short period of time. Thank you.
Okay, there have previously been emergency items that were added to the board meeting. I don't know if this qualifies as one, but board staff can send this over to board leadership and it can move forward as such. In terms, we'll move on to item 4.0, which is closing remarks from the committee chair and adjournment. Colleagues, I will be very honest with you. I was very nervous walking into this meeting. I know that we have a lot of folks that are very passionate about issues and passionate about this issue and making sure that we are doing things right and doing things in a wholesome way. Although there were moments in this meeting that I don't know that I am proud of for us, I do think that we have, conducted our business and tried our best to make sure that our points and our voices and our perspectives were known to members of the community around this issue. And so with that, I thank y'all for your time, members of the public, members, colleagues, and members of board staff. And I will ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes and we are adjourned. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you, Madam Chair.